Peace, peace, everyone. It's your girl Sequoia Blue. We're back in here with another episode. Today's podcast guest is Alex Murdock, and he is a poet and an author. So let's start with our first question. Can you share more about your childhood in Jamaica and how it influenced your writing?
Oh man, that's a great question. I didn't expect that one. Um, it's crazy, but there's a sense of, at least I like to think, there's a sense of freedom to my approach to poetry. I don't really, of course, the way I like to think about it is like, yes, you learn the rules, but then you throw them to the side. And so you become somebody that you don't really let things, you roam free with your creativity. And so that's pretty much how I've kind of been bound to it because I grew up in the countryside in Jamaica. So
Hmm.
if you know anything about country, it's just like, man, it's
Hmm.
free. Like there is no, oh man, you need to be in by such and such time, unless it's like ridiculously late. But pretty much you have free reign to just go about and do as you want. Even the dogs have free reign. Not like in the UK or in the US where you have to really have your dog on a leash. So I
Mm.
guess my mentality is just freedom with it, and I just express myself from a honest. That's one of the things I try to the guidelines I would say I try to
Mm.
express from just be honest with yourself, see for what it is, be unapologetic about it, because and I think in my opinion it makes a difference because when I'm expressing myself, like say when I'm performing my stuff on stage, it means it cuts so much deeper, and so I can evoke so
Mm.
much more emotions from what I'm expressing because it means so much to me because I was so real with it from the beginning, and every expression, every word means something to me. So yeah, it's been a
Wow.
journey, but yes, to answer your question, Jamaica,
Wow.
it was a great, it's a big influence in the way I speak poetry and the way I express. Sometimes I do throw some Jamaican lines in there, just randomly.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's been fun, man.
Yeah, so when you moved to the UK, how did that change your like your culture experience? Like how did that vibe go?
Yeah, that was different. First and foremost, you step off the plane, and if you can picture me, I'm wearing all white everything.
Ooh.
Like, I come from Jamaica, so shorts, white trainers, white shorts, white t-shirt, and then you come off this plane, and it's just like it's a culture clash because I'm just looking at this place. I'm just like, where's the sun? It's just so gray and it's cold,
Mm.
and I'm cold, and I've been cold since I got onto the flight. So
Mm.
all white everything, and I just absolutely destroyed the swag because I was so cold.
Mm.
I'm still wearing the blue socks they give you on the plane, and it was just a different experience. And
Wow.
um, yeah, I never really kind of got used to the cold to that extent, but I learned to tolerate it. Yeah,
Wow. That's so interesting. And what about the food differences? That's because Jamaica has such good food and culture and it's just
yeah.
amazing. Like did you bring some of your Jamaican was there a lot of Jamaican restaurants out there or
Yeah, there is. I'll give them that. There is a lot of Jamaican restaurants out here. Um, but fortunately, my mom has always been she started off as a chef, so I never really had an issue to go outside to get Jamaican food. She's always been well prepped to kind of prepare anything I wanted to eat.
Okay.
I never really had an issue like that with food, but for the most part, there's quite a few Jamaican restaurants out here. You'd be surprised to see. So
Mm.
because Jamaican culture is quite embraced over here, and there's a lot of
Mm.
Jamaicans over here.
Mm.
So
I love it.
yeah, that's the one thing I was fortunate about, where there were still like-minded people like myself coming over here, and they people I could connect with, express with. Like I had people that's pretty much similar boat as myself when I was just finding a school and different places like that.
Mm.
Different mind space, but in terms of like how they see it and how they're going about their business, but we were still in that space where we can kind of understand or connect to our plight, being new to the country and different things, situations like that. And of course, my accent was so much more stronger at that point where it was
Oh
a
man.
different thing for me. Yeah, like it took me a long time to kind of almost being able to kind of become a multilinguist in a sense
Mm.
where like I can switch my accent, because for a long time like I was still speaking broken English everywhere I go, like
Oh
even in
man.
a place that I shouldn't. And so I had to kind of just kind of control that a little bit. But
Wow. No, that's interesting. I mean, I definitely can imagine that because I watch so many YouTube videos of people.
yeah,
Oh,
you
did
just
you go out? Oh, there
you
you go.
grow with it, and you just develop. But it's a journey though. It's a journey. Now I'm all about adventures, and I think
Mm.
that's why I'm so open-minded, because I've come so far in terms of like where I came from to where I am, um, from Jamaica to here, and
Yeah.
the difference in language, and even when I go back home, it's just like, oh my, you know, it's so different. I don't realize how much difference it is until I go back. I'm like, okay, so this is
Mm.
home, because I've been here for so long. London feels like,
Hmm.
till I go back home, and it's like, oh, this is home. It's weird. And I'm just like,
Oh man.
oh, man, you took too long to come back. That's when I realized, yeah, you took too long to come back. And then I
Oh.
meet people that I grew up with, and be like, they're like to me. Funny enough, I was back in Jamaica in December, and I saw a good friend of mine that we grew up with, and he was like to me, so what does that mean? So another 4 years or a decade till I see you again? It's like, oh,
Oh.
I can't believe you said that to me, but I like the honesty though. I like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
mm.
It's probably
But I was
hard to
laughing, man.
travel back and forth.
Yeah,
Man, it's
I
a
was
lot to travel
laughing.
back and forth. It's a
It
lot.
is, it is,
Yeah,
yeah, like
because yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure the flight is long. I'm not sure, but I'm sure the flight is kind of long, huh? From UK, Jamaica.
very long. Like
Oh Lord, yeah.
yeah, like average the least 8 hours, so 8 to 10 hours.
Oof, yikes. So
Yeah.
how how has social media impacted your art? You would say, is it helping you, or do you feel like it's like a rat race? You're trying to get the carrot.
I think social media is one of those double-headed swords. You have
Mm,
to, if you see it as bad, it most likely will be like that for you. Um,
mm,
if you see it as good, it could become that for you, that platform for you. So, but I think either way, it comes with stipulations, come with guidelines, and you just have to
mm,
kind of know how to maneuver yourself. Don't put things out there where you're exposing things that you're not comfortable,
mm.
um,
That's true.
that you prefer to keep in private,
Hmm.
because you're putting yourself in a situation that could end in an unpredictable type of way. So you have to kind of understand the landscape, and just kind of tweak yourself to the terrain that you're in. I would say. But fortunately, for the most part, I don't really have anything to hide. So I've never really been in that space where I had issues sharing. So if somebody found out something they didn't know before, it's just like, okay, I guess it's out there, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
mean, and that's the confidence of it all.
exactly. So it's never really been a problem like that for me. But for the most part, though, I think social media is one of those things where it's if you use it right, it's great for exposure and just sharing little trinkets
Mm.
of yourself, of your persona, of your personality out there, and at least enough to make people curious.
Mm.
And so now they want to know more. And now you treat their interest so much, it's like now they're asking themselves, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Do you get what I mean? It's just like, okay.
Mm.
So now, before you know it, they're on a journey with you.
Yes.
Now they're part of your journey. Now you've created a community, you
I
know,
love it.
and we're just vibing together. And you go on, it's a situation now where like now you can just kind of invite people, because that's what I've started to do, because I've gotten to this space where people start to ask me over and over, like, oh, where you performing? So I was just like, okay, let me just start to put out
Mm.
where I'm performing so people can come along and actually see me in person and see what I do, because it's not the same thing expressing or putting a video up or expressing, just putting words. It's
Mm-hmm.
different when you perform as opposed to just read. And reading
Yeah.
poetry is totally different compared to performing, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different energy when I perform live, versus when I'm on the screen or just sharing a song. But when I perform live, it seems like I get more attention or more people interested, ask more questions on social media. It's like, it's kind of sometimes you're talking to a void and then or maybe somebody listening, but then they didn't say anything. But when I'm in person, it's like, yeah, it's totally different. So
Mm.
that makes sense. Do you perform weekly live?
Yes. When I first started, was because I've only been doing it close to 2 years now. I
Okay.
haven't been in that performance space for a long time, but man, it's just been a blessing, because it's a different. At the beginning we was talking about, oh man, you've come to this path of your journey where, oh man, it's time to evolve and do something different.
Mhm.
Well, I think I came to that point with performance was that plateau for me where, okay, it's now time to step it up and step my game up to another level, because for
Mhm.
a long time it was great just putting words on a piece of paper, and just maybe put it in a book for the most part, and be like, and that was all right, until you get to a space where now it's like, okay, well, how far do you want to go with this? How much do you want out of this? And so performance just made sense as the next level, the next stage of my journey to kind of share with people on a different scale, because it brings so
Mm.
much more into it. And the type of writing that you have to change, you have to tweak, you have to adapt the way you
Mhm.
put words on paper, because at the end of the day, it's not just a paper now, it's got to jump off the page. So how do you do that? You
Mm.
know, how do you evolve yourself to be that kind of animal where you're good on a book? Like you have things where you can put in a book and it speaks for you, it's powerful. But now you need to write words that can jump off a page, and it grabs people, it projects.
Mm.
It's just like it takes people on a journey. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's just to have fun. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's a wordplay, you know. I like to think of it where sometimes I would start with heavy, profound work, like very artistic, still performance. Um, but at the same time, I would think to myself when I'm reading the crowd, I'm like, man, this is some heavy stuff, you know. Like,
Oh.
you know what I mean? And I see the shoulders, and I was like, so that's why I thought to myself, let me kind of swerve that a little bit. So now I would hit them with the heavy stuff, but then I will bring them back with some wordplay at the end, where I would just start making a bit funky, you know what I mean? And just like,
Mm.
just,
Yeah,
and that's
that
the thing
charm
about
to it. Mhm.
wordplay. They just don't see it coming,
Yeah,
you know?
that's the thing I love about poetry. It just you
Yeah.
can hit somebody and they're just like, "Whoa!" I used to love that when I used to live in Atlanta. I don't even I need to go to some more poetry spots out here in Vegas. But I just love the art of it all, and especially you, because you're coming from a spiritual place. I can feel you're coming from like it's like you're tapped in, you know.
Yeah. I'm tapped in, man. I'm a little bit cosmic with it as well. Some of my stuff is borderline type of cosmic, universal. So I would just throw things out there, and I'm quite versed because I grew up watching a lot of animes, Marvel, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm well versed in that type of background. So sometimes I would just throw things out there where people don't really. It's like, you might have to go research that one. You get what I mean? Or like, ask me later on. I'll break it down for you. The little things like that. Sometimes I would talk to people like a few rappers I know, because I seem to kind of get on well with rappers because they are about the wordplay, and so sometimes I guess maybe because they kind of digest words so fast at a high rate. Sometimes it's like to me, oh man, I see you drop that line, but I don't think they quite get it. And I was just like, yeah, that's why I slow it down sometimes.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense, because sometimes art is like it from the artists like us that's deep in. Sometimes it's like a journey. It just comes out spiritually, and then people are like, what are you saying here? But it's like it's definitely on point, and you just explaining it, because I think that's why sometimes people have to say, okay, let me do an explanation of my album, explain the first one, the second song, or if you're a poet, you explain the first poem, your reason behind it. I mean, I think that's a good way too, especially for abstract and people like us, is to kind of do something like that, so people can get an idea. Because the thing is to challenge people's perspectives. That's how I look at it. It's challenging your perspective, and that's what you're doing. You're challenging their perspective. So I think that's a good
thing. Absolutely.
So you started a podcast. Oh, what you about to say? Then we'll get to your podcast.
I was just agreeing with you because you have to. That's what poetry is about. It's about questions.
Yeah.
So how can you not?
Yeah. And especially now, since they're trying to devalue art, we're at a place where we're basically activists and fighting for art. I feel like you're an activist in your own way. Yeah. And I feel like we're just fighting for that authentic art, but it's gonna come. It's gonna stay. It's gonna grow, and it's like it doesn't really matter about the popularity because it's gonna grow anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's gonna stand the test of time, and that's what art is supposed to be. And I think it's cool to have some fun dance music because I listen to that too. But I think that the authentic art is being kind of pushed, and art is being pushed down because of all this. People can easily just pull your poetry off and not have to pay for it. They can easily take it, and there's all types of stuff. But I think art is gonna still live on in different ways. Where if you enjoy it, then you don't have to worry so much about, I guess, say the money, even though you want to do it full time. But sometimes it's just about you getting that message out, and that's where that's one thing.
I think but with especially art, and when we're talking art, I think to begin with, that's how it should start.
Yeah.
Especially you're talking about art, it's got to be start where the purpose, what you're trying to do it for, whatever you're trying to get out there, and a caveat on top of that, you want to, regardless of what you're getting out of it, I think it goes so further when you be like to yourself, man, it's a bonus I'm getting money because I could do the thing for free. It means that much to me. Do you get what I mean? And so I've been that place where, man, I'm just loving it because this is what I do, like regardless. I've been doing it for so long, and it's been a hobby for so long. And it's a privilege, the fact that people appreciate as much as I do.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it. I love what you're doing, man. Just keep doing that. And also your podcast. I mean, I was a guest on there and I enjoyed it. So what made you want to start a podcast?
Oh man, that's another question. it's interesting because when I first started, it was just me just finding other ways to kind of share my work in different formats, in it, so to speak. So at that point, I hadn't really started performing yet. I was just putting just my books and stuff like that. And then I thought to myself, eventually I did get to start to perform and whatnot, but initially the podcast started because I wanted to just kind of share some of my poetry. So it really was just meant to be like an artistic type of platform, just to share work out there. But I'm putting work out there like to begin with, and I was just like to myself, man, I got more to say, After a while, I was just like, I got more to say. And it kind of had me in this space now where I was just like, okay, let's see where this rabbit hole goes. So I started to experiment with it, as you do. And before I knew it, 7 minutes turned into 10, 10 minutes turned to 15. And I just kind of just developed from there. And before I knew it, I was just having these full-blown conversations with myself because, I really started by myself, literally just there, just like a mad scientist with it, just breaking down poetry, like just nuts and bolts, just picking things apart in my own head because, this is my work as well. So it means something to me. So, but as you know, life is a reflection of, art is a reflection of life. So, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, but with most of my writing is derived from what I go through, my life, my experiences. So when I broke it down to myself, I was like to myself, really, I'm really just kind of showing the giving context behind some of these poetry, this artwork I would create, because I realized it's just another way. Indirectly, what I'm doing is I'm bringing people closer to my art. And so I thought to myself, this makes so much more sense. And so just that alone, it kind of created a whole podcast where I developed this template and I thought it worked for me. And then from there, I just kind of mold into this type of animal where now I do actual guests. I do actual podcasting, but guests come through and they want to have a conversation with me.
I love
Have a
it.
conversation and all kind of different things. So man, it's been great. It's been great. The first guest I ever had was she was a painter.
Oh,
Funny
nice.
enough, yeah, and because it just kind of made me realize, man, we're all. I'll see it similar to like say, how they talk about animals, where they all have their own languages, but they all could all understand each other. And I thought to myself, we're all artists at the end of the day. We're all creatives. We all speak a different language, whether it's music. Some people just play guitars, then some people sing it, some people rap it. But we all just speak, we all kind of understand our own language. We all have our own lane, our own language, but we all understand each other,
Yes.
And
Yes, I've noticed that.
that blew it up for me because now I can speak to anybody, any artist.
Wow, I love it. Snap, snap. So run up on time, but before we go, we have to hear your poem. Your special poem is Black History Month, and we can't end the podcast without the poem. So let's get into it, Alex.
Yes, let's get into it. Now, this poem is actually called Quagmire. Now, it's a little bit of a hybrid of what we spoke about, whereas it's like to begin with might be a little bit heavy, a bit things to unpack, but I do have some fun in the end.
I love it. I love it.
All right, so this one's called Quagmire. Life's quagmire grew so bold I could have torn my attire. A few more inches and you find my buttons in the ditches. Eagle's claws scratching for the laws. Tear the roof off, break rules so large. Why? Because they were destined to make me small. A glass house at the end of a fall. A double-headed sword because it's still there as I soar. To the moon and back, they say. Like the skinny cow, I want my meal right now. I've got 8 stomachs after all. Thus I'm craving for even the stars. So far, they even feel small. A ball of energy, I can't go wrong. Nip to the trunk, find my last word where I took an extra dump. Word still stunk. Nasty, nasty, gritted in the funk. Took life in the palm of my hands. Told me your word is mine and now you never get it back. You never even get to snack. Feeling like Galactus feel. Pondering on a planet. For a start, it's too far since I took my last meal. In fact, the way my stomach feel, I think I could eat a galaxy. Wipe my mouth with a black hole. Now I'm feeling gory at the soul. You can see the gray in my eyes. Temper slip. 0 to 100 real quick like I did a somersault. Words sprung. Call me Mr. Pole Vault. Murdock with the shaking like I got a dirty throat. Call it spring cleaning, but I forgot to let the germs out. I guess I forgot to put the word out, word mouth. Now I have bacteria like vermins growing tall. Paranoia in a hole, waiting for a slip up. Now my OCD's in the trenches, building walls. Got me locked out of my own head without keys in an uproar. Guess I'll have to kick the door down. Now who's really feeling small?
Snap, snap. I love that. I felt the energy of it. I felt the pain and I felt the liberation too at the end. That's so interesting. Give us a little like a little excerpt of like, I mean, an excerpt, a summary of what you meant with the poem. What you meant by it.
You know, you kind of summed up at the start. Hinting word, rebel, rebellious. I think to encapsulate what I was speaking about is glass ceilings, breaking through, making a way for yourself, never saying no because somebody told you to assimilate, you know. And it's also evolving beyond your mental barriers that you set for yourself. You know, I mentioned certain things because like going through like stresses, OCD, all these type of things that you, I think people let stop them as opposed to finding solutions. And for myself, I go through a lot of things, but what I found is knowledge has always been my solution for everything. So if I, as you know, I'm a poet, so I have questions. And that's why I'm so well versed, because I have so many questions. I have to be a research guy. So I research everything. Do you get what I mean? Because I have so many questions. And so it feeds my intellect. It feeds my my penship. So now I can go any direction with creativity because I have something to say. If you throw it at me, I have something to say. So I guess that's where I come from with it.
I love that, man. We definitely have a lot in common with that. We already have a lot in common, but we definitely, that last part you just said, I was just talking about that yesterday with my mom about how, you know, because I read a lot, you know, even though I'm not reading as much as I used to. I used to read a lot more, but I just reading articles, anything, blogs, even if it's not a book, you become well-rounded unbeknownst to you. You pick up words that you didn't even know you picked up. You'd be like, oh, why did I say that word? Oh, you read it. And then it got into your subconscious. Yeah. So I think it's important for people to read, but they don't, you know, a
Oh
lot of people don't
man,
like reading. And I think
so
that
important.
it could change your life. I mean, it changed my life when I started reading at around 18, 19 more. Started reading at 16, but then I started reading more and more. And I said, okay, I started learning different things. My perspective started changing. I got out this bubble that I was in. And I think man, it's just, and then you can come at people anything, you know, like if they come
Yes.
any question, anything, you come up with something, but you didn't even know if you could, you know. It's like this thing where it's
Yeah.
like, can I answer this? But then it comes out. You're like, oh, that's because it was in your subconscious. You've been
There
a
you go.
freaking curious person. That's why I say curiosity didn't kill the cat; it freed the cat. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
people say they freed the cat because if you're not curious and not dumb curious, but curious in a way to
Where you want to find
understand your
out.
surroundings, yeah, it changes your life and everything that you felt. I mean, of course, you're gonna have your bad days, but
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't hit you as bad because you're well rounded. You're reading about different things, so I love it, man.
Exactly.
That's a snap.
Exactly.
We're gonna have to
Yeah.
have a part 2 of you on here because
Man, this is
yeah,
fun.
I
This is
still
fun.
had some. I still have so many more questions to ask you, but we're gonna do a part 2. You know, and get some more
Yeah.
poetry out of you, and maybe I'll recite a poem. It could be like a poetry and wine night or something.
Hey, I got you, man. I got you.
Because I'm a red
You know,
wine lady, so
keep the trunk tight. So, you know, I just flip the archive and get something else for you.
I love it, and it's also more promotion because one thing I always say: if I want to see a change, I'm gonna do it myself, and that's why I started this because I want to see a change and in art and getting people out there, and it starts with me. So, you know, and so
I couldn't have
that's
said
why
it better
I'm putting
myself.
you on here and continue to promote. You know, but I'm gonna close this off. So basically, oh, you know what? I have to ask you one more question. What would you say to your 21-year-old self?
Ooh, you gonna hit me like that? Ooh, that's a question, man. I like that.
I have to exit. I have to do it.
What would I say to my 21-year-old self? Man, I would say the biggest thing, just don't flinch, man. Don't flinch. Just keep going. Keep going.
Oh, that's why I love asking this question. Don't flinch. Okay, I'm
Don't
gonna share that
flinch.
somewhere. You know,
And
I'm a
what I
quote
mean by
person.
flinch is don't second guess yourself. Just keep going.
I love
And
it.
I'll add this to it. Don't flinch. Keep going because um, you're doing the right thing. You're betting on yourself.
I love it. And I love the don't flinch because
Mm,
it says a lot to me, you know, because it's
yeah.
so people second guess themselves all the time, including me. And you have to, it's almost like like the mind warp where
Yeah.
you're constantly telling yourself, just do it anyway.
Just
I
do it
love it.
anyway. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on here and everybody for listening. Please support Alex. I'm going to share all his socials, his books, and everything. We didn't get to get on his books and everything, but he's going to come back on here one of these days and we're going to talk about that. And please subscribe and share. And I want to appreciate you guys for supporting me. Peace out.
Take care.